When I was younger, I used to live quite close to this abandoned warehouse. It used to be a leather tannery, which closed in the 1940s, and since then remained empty. Over the years, people had wrecked the place. The windows were smashed, and it was covered in graffiti. I was always fascinated by the warehouse, as my granddad used to work there when he was younger, and said soon after he started working there, the original owner, Mr. Whitaker, had hung himself in the building, leaving the business to his young son. Within a few short years, the company was bust. The father had the passion for the company, and his wife left him due to the amount of hours he was working, which led him to take his own life. My granddad also told me that it was said that Mr. Whitaker still haunts the building to this day. One night, my granddad was on a close down with two other workers. When he turned off all the lights and locked up, he noticed the back office light was left on. One of the workers who kept the keys went inside to turn off the light. A few minutes went by, and he came out running out of the warehouse white as a ghost, saying, "Mr. Whitaker, he's in his office." All three entered the warehouse and nervously walked to the office. As they approached the office, the lights turned off. They opened the door and saw an open fountain pen on top of a book and a candle that had just been blown out. The office belonged to Mr. Whitaker, and his son never stepped foot in there, and out of respect for his father, he left it as his father left it. They once again locked up, and the same thing happened. They entered the building, and as they approached the office, the lights again went off. But they noticed that this time, when they entered, the candle was now lit. My granddad blew the candle out and turned the electrics off at the mains. They then locked up, and the lights stayed off. It was only a year after this happened that the company went bust, and the warehouse had remained empty ever since. I told my granddad I have to go there and check the place out. I had always been interested in the paranormal, and so the following morning I went to visit the abandoned warehouse and see if I would see the ghost of Mr. Whitaker. I got in my car and drove to the old abandoned warehouse the following morning. The place was wrecked. I entered and noticed hooks hanging from the rafters, glass all over the floor, and thorn bushes growing inside through the broken windows. The place was really creepy, and I had the impression somebody was living here. Dotted around the warehouse, there were old, manky sleeping bags. I suddenly heard a sound coming from the back of the warehouse. Maybe this was the ghost of Mr. Whitaker in his old office. I walked towards the back of the warehouse, and the noise continued. It was a strange noise. It sounded like rustling, so I thought it must have been a bird. But when I turned the corner, I realized I wasn't alone in the warehouse. There was a homeless man moving empty bottles and cans around. He looked at me and said that I should leave. "I have done something terrible, and I need you to go." I did not know what he meant by this, but it freaked me out enough to get the hell out of there. I walked through the rest of the warehouse and noticed a dried pool of blood on the floor with a blood-stained knife to the side. I stopped, and I could hear footsteps coming from behind me. The homeless man was following me. He said, "Now you've seen what I've done, which means that I cannot let you leave." I was far enough away from him to get a good head start, and the warehouse was near a busy main road. I thought, if I can get to the main road, I would be safe. The homeless man slowly approached me, and he pulled out a knife. I grabbed the brick and launched out at him, landing on his shoulder, enough to cause him harm. I then sprinted to the main road. I had parked my car next to my old house, which was only a 2-minute run away. I sprinted as fast as I could to get to my car. When I got in my car and drove off, I went past the old warehouse. I could see the homeless man with a sleeping bag over his shoulder walking down the road. I drove past him, and on my way home, I pulled into a police station, and I told them everything I had seen and gave a description of the homeless man. Whatever he had done was horrific. I mean, the pool of blood was huge. A few months after this happened, the warehouse was demolished, and planning permission was put in place for new houses. The police never got back in contact with me, and I don't know if the homeless man was ever caught. I hope you enjoyed today's horror story of the abandoned warehouse, and if you enjoy horror stories, please consider subscribing, and to listen to the next one, click on the next video.